Hello, ladies and gentlemen. We are Adventuresome Reviews, trying to be entertaining for once.
I don't know why.
You see, it's greed, fanatical devotion to ourselves, roaring, whatever the word is,
Self-interest?
egotism.
Oh, there we go.
Roaring egotism that demands slavish adoration from fans. And that's kind of the issue, is that we don't have fans, so...
I think you may be the problem in that regard.
Exactly. We're going to have to radicalize me.
Okay, how do you plan on doing that?
I don't know. I was open to some suggestions.
Peanut butter. It's not necessarily a good
peanut butter mask, or...
I have no idea, but it's a suggestion.
I see. So you're just going the base comedy route. Throw something unusual at them and hope that it works.
Yeah.
You really are useless. He has been particularly useless today, I'll have you all know. We're sitting up our recording room, and I go, did you do this? He goes, no. Did you do this? No. He goes, how do I do this? I go, do this, and he hasn't even opened up the proper recording file.
I have a good excuse. I didn't want to.
Anyway.
We are reviewing Hall of Skulls today.
By Jamie Eubanks, a book of science fiction, alien races, time travel and trials. But no
and
tribulations.
Murder most foul. Unfortunately, the only thing killed was my boredom, so whatever.
That's something most of us can get behind.
I suppose.
Anyway, Keegan had the rather terrible idea to, instead of reading the book's proper synopsis, to wing
one. Completely obfuscating the true nature of the book and deceiving the lot of you. It'll be great. None of you will have any idea what the book's about.
I just realized there's a particular snag with this.
What?
Neither of us remember the main character's name.
Hold on 1 second. None of you are seeing this. I remember. I remember both their names.
I'm so proud of you.
Yes, and I didn't even have to cheat.
Yes. Okay, anyway, since you remember their names, you can get the synopsis.
The main character goes by the name of Kai, and he is all gearing up to become the leader of a nation, all at the age of 24, so bold moves for a youngling.
Yeah. For which he was part of a group of potential candidates that was trained for this and prepared for this from youth. So he's known this as a possibility for a long time. But the thing is that to become the leader of the nation, and there's this proper governmental term for it that we're going to ignore, you have to go through an extensive and very dangerous trial, both physical and mental. And it's not a sequence of trials, and this is one of the favorite parts about the book because it was a really cool concept. It is a really complex trial, and it is the entire part of the book, and it's different for every prospective leader.
And the trial takes the form of a problem cooked up by just the Council of Wise Men, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes it's multiple, sometimes it's just one. And the trial that takes place here in this book is that they steal his girlfriend.
Which is fiancé.
Which is a downright villainous move to do, I must say.
Yeah. And so his task is he has to find her. And what's really cool about this is that she's hidden in time as well. In time and location.
And this is a world where they have multiple planets that they can visit, right? So
it is a fully interstellar species. Really advanced technology.
They don't even use ships anymore in the modern day. It's just giant teleportation device they walk through, and 2 seconds later you're there.
And so while the book is often action-driven, it is also very much a mystery, trying to figure out where his fiancée is and putting together clues that he discovers along the way and tidbits of knowledge that are presented to him so to find out how to progress, etc., etc.
And they're not necessarily terribly overt hints either, right? It's like, oh, I see where she went, or they are actively tiny hints that he has to work really hard to actually put together, which in itself is nice.
Yes. And as the story progresses, it changes, because you have the time travel aspect, and I really enjoyed the time travel aspect here. The author made excellent use of it, both as a challenge and as a medium to change the narrative. And in the same vein, space travel, not space travel, that's the wrong word because it's a science fiction book.
Temporal?
No. Different locations, because of different planets in concert with the different time periods. And it's just, and the time aspect was just really well integrated, because it's not just he goes back in time. No, the story is actually about them manipulating and doing stuff with time and with other people, etc. And so it was just an excellent implementation of time travel.
And a secondary benefit of time travel that the author uses very well is that it allows her to, rather than just explain the backstory of the world, right? She takes Kai and dumps him in the backstory, in the trials and tribulations, and these are some fairly serious stuff that has shaped his people's entire culture, right? And so once again, that the author handles backstory and just exposition very well.
Yes. The author also does characters well. The characters are complex and they're imperfect while still remaining likable for me.
And there's also not a massive bevy of them. And you're given a fantastic amount of time to actually get to know each character.
Particularly your main character.
And these characters traverse the range of emotions, right? When Kai first travels, because Kai travels back in time, and we're going to have to be very touchy with this, but he meets a character who initially is very friendly toward him and takes on, not quite a guardian, but an uncle-esque relationship. But as the story changes and as things become revealed, this comes into question, and their opposing goals start causing friction. And this leads to some very tense scenes.
Yeah. And it's just individual motivations and personality, well, not personality, but it all just dynamic and changes as the story and the location demands. And like I mentioned before, the book changes sort of for like the last quarter of the book, and the author builds really excellently up to this change, giving you little tidbits, and you get glimmers of it. You say, is that what she's doing? And then as it builds more and more and more tidbits get added, and you figure out stuff, and then that finally that switch happens, and you're like, yes, really enjoyed. Not predicted, because it's not like ooh mystery, but I was hoping the author was going that direction, and so when it did happen, I was really pleased. The prose is solid.
Maybe that was like, the prose is my one, obviously we really like the book, right? And the prose is like the one thing that I may besmirch a little, and it's, I would skip paragraphs, right? And so either it's a little description heavy, or there's just too many words, but by and large, the actual writing of the prose was very solid. I just found myself skipping. I was not skipping page after page by any extent. I was just skipping to the next. I wanted to get to the next really interesting scene, which
yeah.
And the author handled scene transitions and the actual plot, the macro plotting of the book once again really well, because there was never a scene that was boring or that felt like it didn't have to be there, or that was actually devoid of interaction with either. Because Kai interacted with the plot, with other characters, with the world, and was all just exceedingly well handled once again.
And by interaction, we don't just mean, hey, how are you doing? We mean like actual interaction, whereas things are revealed, Kai's character develops, like actually really strong character interaction. And then the book also lands its conclusion really well.
Yes.
The conclusion of the mystery and where his fiancée was, it's very pleasing.
And nothing Kai does is easy. Every step of the way is a struggle without necessarily falling into grim, dark, back-breaking tragedy, which is something, once again, something I liked.
Yeah, there's sort of the one section about like 1/3 of the way through the book where the first initial challenge is sort of not necessarily resolved, but sort of fixed momentarily. And then the book becomes a little sloggy because you're waiting for the next clue, for the next hint, for the next something to happen. It takes a while to happen, because Kai is waiting for it to happen as well.
And so, which is at once bad and good, because Kai is sitting around twiddling his fingers, desperate to proceed to find his girlfriend. And we, as the readers, are right there with him to some extent, because we want the story to progress. And this section of the book isn't boring by any stretch, right? It's part of where the conflict of the story between Kai and his one uncle-esque figure comes in. And so once again, maybe a bit slow, but by and large, very well handled.
Yeah. You have anything else you want to say?
So the girlfriend's name is Asher, and she doesn't necessarily enter the book too much.
Mm-hmm.
However, she feels like an active character, because of how Kai is so desperate to find her, but you also, he's constantly thinking about her, and you get these glimpses of her personality, and it's kind of like Kai is telling you about her, because he's remembering things fondly, and he's wishing for her, but there's never, any backstory scenes. But Asher, the girlfriend, still feels like an active character in the book that you get to know and get to understand as a character. Once again, it's just handled really well on the author's part. Though, even without Asher ever entering the story, the romance is built up to be a solid romance.
Yes.
And relationship. Because you even have... When Kai was first selected to become a candidate for leadership, he was separated from this girlfriend at 14, right? And so you have this 10-year jump where both of them have agreed on a meeting date, and they both try to show up, right? After 10 years, which is when the trial takes away the girlfriend, which is, right evil of them, but still, it's the fact that the girlfriend showed up is so important.
Yeah.
Because it means she's actually invested in the relationship too, so that even though it's been 10 years, Kai putting all this effort into finding her, it never once enters your mind that she is not invested in him, that it's going to be a failed romance or just a flighty girlfriend, right? Because she showed up, right? So once again, it's just one of those things that the book handled well.
Yeah. I would have given the book about 4.5 stars. I really enjoyed it. I enjoyed it almost from start to finish, and it was just an excellently executed plot and concept.
Yep, I agree.
Toodaloo!
Toodaloo!
See you all later.
Fare thee well, our future friends.